From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for starting your week with us. I'm Russ Riesinger. President Trump says he wants the Senate to vote on his next Supreme Court pick before the November 3rd election, setting off a showdown both on Capitol Hill and in the presidential race. Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died from metastatic pancreatic cancer last Friday at the age of 87. Bofta Yimam is at the Supreme Court with more.
President Trump has vowed to name a replacement for the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg by the end of the week.
I would say on Friday or Saturday I'll be announcing the pick. 5 women are being looked at and vetted very carefully.
CBS News has learned 2 of the top contenders are currently U.S. Court of Appeals judges. Demonstrators are targeting top Senate Republicans after they said they would move swiftly on the president's pick.
We're going to vote on this nomination on this floor.
So far, at least 2 Republican senators, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, have come out against voting on a nominee, with just 6 weeks left to Election Day. Senate Democrats say they're pushing more of their Republican colleagues to oppose rushing through a Supreme Court vote.
There's only one way for us to have some hope of coming together again, and that is for 4 brave Senate Republicans to commit to rejecting any nominee until the next president is installed.
The showdown over the seat has also energized both sides in the 2020 presidential race. President Trump hits the campaign trail in Ohio Monday.
The Supreme Court is the most important thing right now.
While Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden campaigns in Wisconsin.
If I win this election, President Trump's nominee should be withdrawn.
Meanwhile, black draping now marks the spot where Justice Ginsburg sat on the bench at the U.S. Supreme Court, where she will line repose Wednesday and Thursday after a private service. Bofta Yimam, CBS News, the U.S. Supreme Court.
President Trump told reporters he'll be meeting with his Supreme Court contenders in person ahead of announcing his pick. Also today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will also lie in state in the U.S. Capitol on Friday. U.S. Senator Steve Daines says the Senate should move quickly to confirm President Trump's nominee to fill the Supreme Court vacancy created by Friday's death of Justice Ginsburg. But as MTN's Mike Dennison reports, Daines felt differently back in 2016 when Barack Obama had a chance to fill a vacancy during an election year.
In 2016, when conservative U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia unexpectedly died, the Republican majority in the U.S. Senate refused to consider President Obama's nominee to fill that vacancy. GOP senators, including Senator Daines, said a vacancy should not be filled during an election year. Here's Senator Daines speaking on MTN's Face the State in February 2016.
I don't think it's right to bring a nominee forward in an election year. And given the people of this country have started to vote already, to put a nominee in the middle of that kind of very hyper-politicized environment, I do not think is right for the institution. And frankly, let the people speak, and we'll move forward in January 2017.
Now, in the wake of Ginsburg's death, 46 days before the election, Daines is saying the GOP-controlled Senate should vote promptly on Trump's nominee to replace her. That vote would create a 6-3 conservative majority on the high court that could last for a generation or more. Daines said if the Senate waits and Democrat Joe Biden is elected president, Biden would choose a Supreme Court nominee who is, quote, a liberal activist judge who will threaten our Montana way of life, end quote. Daines is up for re-election this year. His Democratic challenger, Governor Steve Bullock, says the Senate should wait until the inauguration of the next president before filling Ginsburg's seat, just like they did in 2016. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, however, says that's not going to happen. Daines said 4 years ago that blocking an Obama nominee was part of his job representing Montana. But he also said he would apply the election year principle regardless of the president's party.
Now, would you be taking this position if the president was a Republican?
I would.
Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
U.S. Senator John Tester also said 4 years ago that the Senate should act on nominees during an election year. Now he says they should not, but that he's merely asking for Republicans to apply the same standard that they applied back in 2016. In the 2020 race for Montana governor, Republican Greg Gianforte has put another $1 million of his own money into his campaign. The former high-tech entrepreneur from Bozeman has now spent almost $3.6 million of his fortune on his campaign for governor. He's also raised an additional $3.17 million from donors. All told, Gianforte's campaign outspent that of his Democratic opponent, Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney, by a 3-to-1 margin so far. Now, through last week, the Gianforte campaign has spent about $6.3 million compared to Cooney's spending of about $2 million. However, Cooney has actually raised more from donors in the past 3 months, $1.4 million compared to about $900,000 for Gianforte. Gianforte and Cooney are squaring off in what's become one of the closely competitive governor's races in the nation this year. Ballots will be mailed out to most Montana voters in less than 3 weeks. Police are investigating another fatal shooting here in Billings. A man shot to death in the Heights early this morning. Detectives were on the scene much of the day. Around 4:30 this morning, police responded to the 300 block of Nash Lane, rushed a 43-year-old man with gunshot wounds to the hospital. He was later pronounced dead. Officers say there is no threat to the public and all parties are accounted for. Lieutenant Brandon Woolley says he'll meet with detectives tomorrow and release more details after that. And a Billings woman now faces a number of felony charges in a DUI crash that left her young son dead and another one of her children seriously injured. The charges against 30-year-old Kaylee Mollendor come nearly 10 months after that wreck in West Billings. Mollendor is charged with vehicular homicide under the influence, negligent vehicular assault, 4 counts of felony criminal endangerment, and driving with a suspended or revoked license. Court records state that Mollendor, with 3 children on board, took off at a high speed after her car was rear-ended at the scene of another accident last November. She's accused of then crashing head-on into another vehicle in the area of 32nd and Gable. Her 5-year-old son died just days after that crash. Her daughter spent 2 months in the hospital and has undergone numerous procedures since then. Mollendor claims she was disoriented or incapacitated by the rear-end collision and had no knowledge of what happened. She faces up to 30 years in prison on the most serious charge alone. A former Billings school bus driver faces up to 20 years in prison and $100,000 in fines after he drove 28 middle school students to school last Thursday while allegedly high on drugs. 46-year-old Keith Jones pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of criminal endangerment and 1 count of driving under the influence in Yellowstone County District Court this morning. Police arrested Jones last Thursday morning after students on that bus going to Ben Steele Middle School alerted parents and teachers that Jones was driving erratically, twitching, and slumping over the steering wheel. Court documents state when arrested, Jones admitted he was carrying around a vial of urine to pass a drug test later that day. Well, 3 more COVID-19 related deaths across Montana reported on this Monday. 2 Yellowstone County women in their 60s died Saturday, the 12th and 13th Yellowstone County deaths this month. The state reports the 3rd victim to die of COVID-related illness is from Marr County. So far, 160 people have died across Montana. More than 2,400 people are currently infected. Well, COVID-19 was on the minds of Billings School Board trustees tonight as they heard an update from the Yellowstone County Health Officer. Billings students are entering their 5th week of in-person classes, while the county at large is experiencing an uptick in positive cases. Public health officials are working with school administrators to streamline contact tracing in the classroom to more quickly quarantine students. Q2's Mitchell Agee brings us a recap of the meeting.
At the Billings School Board meeting Monday, trustees heard a community COVID-19 update from Yellowstone County Health Officer John Felton. In his remarks, he told trustees about the measurements that public health officials are looking at to determine whether or not in-person classes can continue. From last week to the previous week, the county saw an increase from 18 to 31 cases per 100,000 people per day. That stat increased by 13 cases total. And the positivity rate among youth ages 19 and under jumped from 9 to 18% in the same time period. The health department looks at those statistics and 2 others to make determinations about the schools. If 3 of 4 measures go into the red zone, meaning that they have stressed operations for a period of 2 weeks, public health officials will look at possible school closures. Currently, those school measurements are hovering around the yellow mark. On the school district side of things, to more quickly help quarantine students, the health department is deputizing Billings school administrators to be able to share confidential COVID-19 information with the health department. This training is scheduled to begin on Wednesday for some administrators.
I think it's as effective of a program as that we can have at this time. I'm concerned with the increase in cases that if we had to rely on public health being 24 or 48 hours behind that, we could increase the numbers.
Upham said that the health department has already deputized a handful of elementary school administrators for the roles. He said that they have already helped keep up the timeliness of the quarantine procedures. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Health officer also touched on what events see the most COVID-19 spread in Yellowstone County. It's still family gatherings like weddings or funerals and the workplace that are the biggest contributors. Still ahead on the MTN 9 o'clock news, the two candidates vying for Montana's open attorney general seat debate facing off yesterday. We're going to break that down. But first, Bob McGuire's in next with your full 7-day forecast.